Hello there, and welcome to Your Lunch versus the Planet, a TikTok and high impact event live from High House at COP30 in Belém. Nothing you do today is more likely to have an impact on the planet than what you decide to eat. Food causes over a quarter of greenhouse gas emissions, which is roughly the same as all of humanity's oil consumption. But the good news is there's lots that you can do about it. We'll be bringing you practical tips, positive stories, and the occasional shocking statistic so that you can walk away informed and maybe a little inspired. So, no small task there for our absolutely brilliant panel that we have for you today. Maria Clara, a Brazilian TikTok creator who specializes in sustainability content. Erika Thompson from Texas has an absolutely astounding 11 million followers from her content about bees. And Praveen Shridhar is the Chief Science and Technology Officer from Save Our Soil. Everybody, thank you so much for being here today. Clara, let's start with you, because before we started, you were telling me that here in Brazil, there's more carbon emissions from food and from agriculture than from oil.
This is a huge topic in Brazil. So, when we talk about the greenhouse emissions in Brazil, we have to talk about what we eat because meat consumption is directly connected to the greenhouse emissions here. So, we talk less about oil, fossil fuels. We talk more about food systems and meat consumption. So, it is uh,
Yeah.
the biggest emissions come from land use, deforestation, and also agriculture practices. And so we plant grains to be food to create food for the cattle, and we deforestate to put cattle in these places. So everything concerning land use, agriculture, agribusiness in general is what's causing the main
Yeah.
biggest emissions.
Yeah, absolutely. And, my friends and family who aren't at COP, I think, just like you're saying, they'll really think about oil and gas and energy, but they won't be thinking about food in the same way.
Yes, yes, and a while ago, I was in this big event and I talked to one of the major climate scientists in the world, Professor Johan Rockstrom. And when I asked him about food systems, I actually asked him, what can an ordinary person do to help improve the food systems? And he answered that a more plant-based diet, so less meat. I asked him if vegetarianism could save the world, and he said, "Well, you don't have to completely be apart from meat. You can eat meat once a week, but it's better to have more plant-based diet." So we can do this. It's not something that's very far from us. By choosing what we put in our plates, we're helping the greenhouse emissions and therefore the planet.
Exactly, because I think a lot of people feel very helpless, don't they, when they read or hear about climate change and CO2, and that it's all very distant. COP can feel very distant to most people, but actually, this is really something which people themselves can control. I mean, let's come to you now, Erica. I think lots of people watching will remember learning about bees and pollination in their science classes at school. They may not remember all the details. Tell us a little bit about bees and why it's so important for food.
Sure. Well, bees, when they go to work in the world every day, they offer an invaluable service to our planet, and that is pollination. So many plants have trouble when it comes to reproduction, and that trouble is they can't move. It's hard for them to meet a mate. Some plants are pollinated by wind, by water, but the majority of plants on Earth are pollinated by pollinators, and particularly bees. So it's important that we keep our bee populations healthy because without bees, there is no food. There is no food system, not only for us, but for many other creatures on the planet. And our entire industrial agriculture system, as we know it, is reliant on the work
Yeah.
of bees and beekeepers.
Yeah, absolutely. Because people will think about bees and they'll think about pollination and perhaps assume that you're looking at plants, but actually, it's the whole agriculture system that relies on them.
Yes, we unfortunately have developed an industrial agriculture system where we are growing a lot of one type of plant in a certain area. For example, almonds. The majority of almonds in the world are grown in California, and almonds are exclusively pollinated by bees. Almonds would not exist without bees and beekeepers, of course. So in the United States, we truck almost all of the bees that live in the United States and are owned by commercial beekeepers to California once a year. It's very rough on the bees. It's like sending the bees to war. Bees are not meant to live on semi trucks. And we put them in these fields to pollinate crops. After the almond pollination, they will be taken across the country to pollinate different crops, the apples in New York, the oranges in Florida. And it's very rough on the bees. It's not the way that bees were meant to live. But the important thing for people to know is that there's something that everybody can do to help bees and beekeepers. And that is to plant more plants, particularly native plants. Bees need a lot of diverse food, just like we do, to live healthily through and to be able to do their job. And so if people plant plants that bees can forage from other than what they're put in these fields to pollinate, it's very helpful to bees and to beekeepers.
So for the people watching, if they're concerned about this issue, they're concerned about the food systems, just very practically, they can, find a space outdoors and plant.
Absolutely. And then just be aware of where your food comes from. Learn about where your food comes from. For example, as a beekeeper, I try to avoid eating almonds. I know how much they take from the bees, how much energy. And I think that's just awareness is the first step as well, in addition to, of course, plant plants for bees.
Absolutely. Praveen, let's come to you for some of the science on this. We heard Clara talking about her conversation with Johan Rockstrom here, talking about how people can make such a huge impact to the future of the planet from the food they eat. Is it true, do you think, in everyday life, there's almost nothing our audience can do to help the planet more than look at the food that they eat?
I think so, right? Like all of us need to eat to live. All of us need to drink water to live. So only when you consume consciously, as to you be aware of what you're putting in your plate and therefore in your stomach, that you can do that. So when you grow, like whatever you choose to eat, if it's grown regeneratively, like the way it kind of is less harmful or less stressful on the bees, it's also less stressful on the soil. Because like the bees do the pollination, a lot of work happens below the soil, which actually provides the plants the nutrition from the soil. Like dumping chemicals is not how the plants get the nutrition. There are workhorses below our feet in the form of bacteria, fungi, and your earthworms and other rodents also, who do the job of converting whatever is put in the land into something that is available. It's like cooking your food. Like there are a lot of cooks, chefs below the feet who do the cooking to make the food available to the plants who eventually produce food that we eat.
Yeah.
So it's very essential to know where your food comes from, how it's produced, and how far it comes from.
Yeah.
Like because we are sitting in the middle of a tropical region.
Yeah.
Like I understand if you're from temperate, so otherwise you will need to ship your food from other parts of the world. In tropics, if people's food habits were seasonal, you get seasonal fruits, seasonal vegetables. Why don't you eat them? It's good on you because it kind of provides the kind of vitamins you need,
Yeah.
all your micronutrients that you need, and also it's very good on the environment, the nature, and in many ways, if you reduce a lot of carbon footprint that way, right? And if you kind of grow food sustainably, your land becomes sink of carbon. Like
Yeah.
we're sitting in the climate COP, which is dedicated to talking about carbon dioxide in the air. Carbon dioxide in the air heats the air. When it goes into the water, it makes it acidic, which is not good for any life. When it's in the soil, it actually nourishes it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you do the right things, it becomes a good
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, like you were saying, soils become emitters.
Yeah.
Like soils can actually address 33% of carbon requirements.
Yeah. And, it's such a good point that you make is that, eating is completely universal. We talk about all sorts of things here at COP, which actually, not everybody can do. We've got to remember only 10% of people use an aeroplane regularly. It's a very niche thing to do. Everybody needs to sleep. Everybody needs to eat. and everybody, it seems, needs to use TikTok as well. So let's talk about your jobs as creators a little bit, because you do have these amazing platforms yourself where you're talking about this issue. We've got a couple of clips that we'd like to show just to give the audience a sense of what you do in case they don't know already. I think the first one we've got is from Clara, who made a film about alternatives for a Christmas dinner. Let's take a look at that, please.
Essa receita fez tanto sucesso no Natal que eu resolvi repetir. É um rocambole de lentilha que teve gente que chamou de lombo vegano. Eu vou colocar todas as quantidades certinhas na legenda. Mas é assim, ó, depois de deixar a lentilha 12 horas de molho, você acrescenta alho poró, shoyu, miso, sal, páprica doce e temperinhos. Eu usei uma mistura de temperos indianos chamado garam masala, limão siciliano e meio copo.
We're just going to fade the sound out a little quickly and keep the video playing. Let me ask you, because what's the reaction you get when you post content like this?
Well, there are two sides of the story. So, because this was I'm sorry you couldn't understand what I was saying, but
The pictures told us
you
what you were saying. Yeah.
but it's like a vegan tender, like a vegan traditional meat that you eat during Christmas. But I made a vegan alternative. So I have lots of people who said, I tried it, it's so good, it was a success. But I also have, like I said, agrobusiness is a huge part of our economy, and it's the biggest emissions. So there's a lot of people like hating it, and getting angry that I'm bringing this subject up. So they say, no, this is terrible. But I mean, it's an important topic there, and it's very polemic.
Yeah, and do you think is that just individuals, or is that the agriculture industry?
Yeah, I think it's more the agricultural business, because they have a machine around it. They are very powerful. And whenever we try to bring the topic of, you told me the name of it, Meatless Monday? How do you call it?
GDP.
No, the Meatless Monday, remember?
Oh, Meat-Free Monday.
Meat-Free Monday, yes. This is a big movement.
Yeah.
Whenever we bring this up, they get so angry. So there's a very strong machine behind it.
Yeah, but it's so interesting about the power of content and the power of what people are able to do, that you do get this reaction, because there are obviously people who are afraid of what you're doing.
Exactly.
So I mean, let's look at content again. This time we'll look at some of Erika's. This is a short film you made on your channel. Let's play the tape.
Bees were living on this chair, and the family who lived here couldn't even step outside their back door, but they wanted to save the bees, so they called me. So I gave the bees some smoke, and I started to carefully remove each piece of the hive. This hive was so beautiful, I really hated having to dismantle all of the bees' hard work. These bees had made a bunch of honey on the chair, and it was clear that this colony had a very strong queen, because this hive was full of baby bees and tiny bee eggs. So I carefully saved every piece of the hive for the bees to use in their new home. After I had removed and saved all of the comb, I began searching for the queen, since I hadn't seen her yet. And after a few minutes of searching, I found the queen hiding on the side of the chair.
Oh,
I put the queen in.
so you have 11 million followers, which is an astonishing audience for this content. As a creator, what power do you think that gives you?
Well, I think it comes with a huge responsibility to not only show the important work of bees and beekeepers, but what I've learned through making content. And I always say that I'm a beekeeper first and a content creator second. I kind of fell into this just by posting the naturally amazing things that bees do online. And I think it comes with a great responsibility. People don't know a lot about bees, is what I've learned through posting online. They know that bees sting us, and maybe they know something about pollination, but I hope that I'm showing people a better side of bees and the true nature of bees. And I really want to cause a mind shift for the way that we think about bees, because they are responsible for 1 out of every 3 bites of food we eat. Over 80% of the plants on Earth are pollinated by bees. So we need to have a better relationship with bees. And I hope that when people watch my videos, they will think a little bit differently about bees and maybe about how to help them.
Yeah, absolutely. And Pravina, Save Our Soil also, has a huge audience of millions online. You're a scientist, and you're able to talk to millions in this way. And I imagine a lot of your scientific peers, they write articles for journals which are read maybe by 50 people. It's completely different. So what power do you think you get from your platforms as a scientist?
See, the founder of the Safe Soil movement is Sadhguru. He has quite a bit of followers, and his videos are watched over number of billions time on YouTube, and he has a strong presence on Instagram as well. Right, all these platforms these many platforms.
He should get on TikTok, I should say. Is
I'm sure he should. So the reason for us, like, I'm sitting this panel, I'm not a content creator, but it makes a difference because what you do is very meaningful. What as content creators do is very meaningful because you're the bridges between the science and the understanding of the people. If they understood well, they will know whom to vote for, isn't it? If you can communicate what is the importance of regenerative agriculture and people see it in the difference in the way they eat, and they see in the next round of election and they see somebody standing for that, then all 11 million followers are going to look for that mandate.
Yeah.
So it's very important to kind of be in these platforms to communicate about science and make it accessible and make it people's science.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think again, just taking it back to our audience and giving them a sense of power in this situation. I mean, if people are concerned and they want to get involved and they want to be part of a conversation, there's something that social media can really do to people. They're not helpless consumers. They can be active creators as well.
Yes. Well, I just spoke to one of the UN spokesperson on climate change, and I asked him, what can an ordinary person do to engage with this whole event, this whole conference? And he said, use your voice, talk to your neighbors, talk to your community, because act local and think global is, there's a saying, right? So you have to start with your surroundings, try to engage everyone in this, and use your voice, and actually also be an example yourself. Like if you can, right?
Yeah. Well, listen, let me stop you there, because that leads really neatly to our next point. So, advice for the audience: we can plant things to help bees. We can use your voice, create content. Let's look at some of the food choices that people can make now. We've got a few animations with statistics that we're going to show. The first one here is about deforestation and the Amazon, where we are now. Now, this is an absolutely amazing statistic, which is that agriculture is responsible for 80% of deforestation in the Amazon, according to Greenpeace. Again, Clara, let me take this one to you as the Brazilian native. What do you think?
It's so sad because this is one of the hardest things that we have in Brazil to control and to make it stop, because the government comes and goes, different parties and different perspectives come to, and they all try to, well, some of them don't, but this is like something, it's the major difficulty that they have, because it's really connected with crime, with big industries that buy the meat. So there are so many aspects to help face this problem, It's so difficult, and it's so sad because it could start with us looking at our plate and decrease the meat in our plates, right? We could start a revolution with our plate to help diminish the number.
Yeah, well, look, let's quickly get up our next chart then. So this is the amount of CO2 produced per kilogram of different food types. We've got beef right up there, as you'd expect. Pork, much, much less, which is interesting. And then I was fascinated to see that coffee and cheese per kilo, it's not a direct comparison, but per kilo, coffee and cheese produce even more than eating pork. So for people making choices, it's it's not just as simple as don't eat meat. We can see beef is the the number one here, but I'd love to hear from you here, Pravina, about kind of which different foods we should look at, what we shouldn't look at, kind of what are the choices you think that our audience could make, literally when they're choosing what to eat this lunchtime, this evening, what's going to make the biggest difference?
Don't eat beef. So it'll be good for audience to. I would say I come from a very vegetarian country.
Yeah.
Like Indians. speak-
Nearly 50%.
Yeah. So our meat consumption is way less, but I think countries across the world you have enough options for you to move towards plant-based diet. So definitely plant-based diet, and as one said, it's not necessary for you to go zero on meat. You can be conscious in your consumption.
Yeah.
If you're conscious, and obesity is a big deal. Like hidden hunger is a problem. Like obesity is a health problem across the world. The number of people obese is actually tipping over the number of people going hungry.
Yeah.
So if you were to eat consciously, reducing the portions that you eat, choosing to eat consciously, choosing to eat seasonal, locally produced food,
Yeah.
plant-based food, I think will be a good choice to
Yeah.
have these numbers change a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember really well at COP26 in Glasgow, when you bought food from the canteen, they had the menu, and with each option, it told you the CO2 produced from the dish that you chose. And, the beef on the menu, it was Scotland, so they had to have haggis. But the emissions from haggis were so far and above everything else. And just thinking about food labeling, there's all sorts of health advice and nutrition. People have got very good, in restaurants and so on, about advising people on allergies and this sort of thing. But the environmental impact, it's the only time I've ever seen that marked on the food that you buy. I don't know if anybody wants to jump in on that, but it's always struck me that that's something we could really do.
Yeah, all restaurants should do this,
Yeah.
Like if you see the impact of what you're choosing, we can choose better. The more we know, the more we will do something about it, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like in COP, in this event, there should not be meat at all, right?
Yeah.
Because this is such a big problem, right? So I think they should take it off the menus.
I mean,
So I just want to add to this. See, one is to show people what's the negative impact and get them to discourage. See how many people smoke in the world. Knowing smoking causes cancer, getting the text of smoking causes cancer on your cigarette boxes. It took litigations after litigations to get that done. But has it discouraged smoking as the number of people smoking down? Not really. You can have a way of labeling where you say that if you choose to eat something, this is the healthy inputs. Like right now, we have carbs, fats, and certain bits, salt, sugar, that's in your labeling. You don't have the micronutrients being spoken about. And one of the easiest ways to ensure that all the micronutrients and nutrients come into your food is healthy soils. And healthy soils, one of the easiest ways to measure healthy soils in the context of climate and also health is carbon.
Yeah.
You say what was the soil in which your food was grown, your organic matter was grown. If you have that as an indicator, because that's a very direct indicator to how much nutrition you get from it, and therefore nudging people positively, while the negative nudge may also work, but it's also good to kind of push people towards having more nourishing diet.
Yeah.
And telling them where it's grown.
Yeah.
May actually make a difference.
Well, Erika, let's come to you. So we're talking about different foods that we could have or avoid. I mean, obviously, honey, the production of honey would not create any CO2, but should we think of honey as a food source necessarily? Because obviously, it's the food for the bees themselves. I'd love to hear what you think.
Thank you so much for asking that question. As a beekeeper and bee advocate, I actually don't harvest and sell my own honey. And that's a question I always get is, you must have so much honey. Do you sell honey? The bees have honey.
Yeah.
The bees make the honey for their food. when we're in a dearth, when nothing is in bloom in winter, and we can't understand, we don't know what the weather is going to do, especially now with climate change and extreme weather events. If the bees run into that and they have no food, they will die. So when we take honey from the bees, we are taking their only source of food. They have pollen, which is their protein source, and honey, which is their carbohydrate source. And honey is what they store in their hive for the long term, for the next generation. The bees gathering nectar today won't even eat the honey from that nectar. That's for the next generation of bees. And so I think we should have a greater awareness about, or we need to have a greater awareness about the cost of honey for the bees. And I enjoy honey just like other people, but it's just, it doesn't bring me any joy as a beekeeper to harvest and sell their
Yeah,
honey. So
absolutely.
I don't do it.
Yeah, and I guess when we're looking at this issue of CO2 reduction and the food and so on, I mean, you can't really think about CO2 reduction without thinking about bees. Um,
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, they are responsible for our world would look entirely different without bees. And it did before bees. Our world was brown. They co evolved alongside plants to offer this service of pollination and plant reproduction. And so when we talk about things that remove carbon from the atmosphere, those are plants and those are there because of bees. So it's very important that we keep our bee populations healthy, not only for our food system, but for the health of the planet. There is no nature without bees. There is no biodiversity without bees.
Absolutely. So look, we've got one more statistic that we're going to throw up on the screen now. This is about food waste. So 1/3 of food that is produced is either lost or wasted. Now, a lot of that is going to be in the production process or from the supermarkets, the shops, and the restaurants, but individuals, the people watching, will throw away a large amount of food themselves. And if we're trying to get this number down in terms of food and emissions, don't throw away 1/3 of it. Seems like a easy place to start.
Yeah, I've done actually a series of videos on that on TikTok, talking about how we can use the whole fruit. The I'm not I don't remember the words for this, but like the outside part of a mango, for example, you can eat that part. Did you know?
No.
You can eat the banana peels as well. I created this series that show like you can do a vegan meat with the banana peels. If you put some sauce in it, it tastes great. So there are lots of recipes that you can do to prevent food waste in your home. So many recipes. If you have a fruit or a vegetable, search in the internet. You'll definitely find recipes for how to use the whole fruit, and the whole vegetable, because most of them you can eat the peel, you can eat the parts that you usually would throw away. So this is a very effective way to prevent food waste.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Anybody else?
If you look at traditional food systems across the world, be it Thai, be it Indian, be it Chinese, be it the countries in this part of the world, they've always used all parts of the vegetable, all parts of the fruits. Some of it is used for pickling, some of it is used dried, some of it is used fresh, some of it is used as chutneys. Yeah. So maybe we can kind of learn a little bit from our great grandmothers. You'll be able to, or grandmothers for that matter, in our part of the world.
Yeah.
So you'll be able to save food.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. Well, look, we're very nearly at the end. Just a quick question to all of you before we say goodbye. The audience watching at home, very quickly, if you would like to give them one takeaway from this discussion that we've had today. I'll give you all a second to think, but not much longer. Clara, let's start with you. What would you like our audience to walk away with?
I would say get more informed. The more conscious, the more aware you are, the more you can make more conscious choices, like looking at your plate and choosing better.
Yeah.
I think this is it.
Wonderful. Erika?
I would say stop using pesticides in your own gardens and lawns. Stop supporting the use of pesticides. And of course, plant flowering plants, preferably native plants for bees and other pollinators.
Fantastic.
I think eat locally, save soil.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you, all of you, so much. It's been absolutely brilliant. I think there's some fantastic takeaways for our audience around soil, pesticides, planting, getting informed, not throwing things away, avoiding beef. It's been absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for taking part.
Thank you.
Brilliant. So look, that's all we have time for today. A huge thanks for watching, and also to all our friends at TikTok for working with us on the show. Stay tuned for more from us at High House in Brazil, where we're looking beyond the headlines to the issues that really matter. Do join us for more.